of facts. We know better than you. We are the social Darwinists. And that idea of evolution and Darwin really hit me hard yesterday. It was weird. I was setting this up. This is the new studio, by the way. I have not put up, it might still be a little reverby and echoey because I haven't put up, I did go get another egg crate. I haven't cut it up and put it up on the walls yet. That's probably going on after this. But I was watching Rob Ager, who I'm a big fan of. And Rob Ager does film analysis. And I found Ager's stuff, boy, probably 15 years ago, maybe more than 15 years ago at this point. But I remember the thing that he did the most that impressed me. He's a big Kubrick fan. And if you watch the show, you know I'm a big Kubrick fan. And he talked about 2001, A Space Odyssey, and the meaning of the monolith. Now, when you first watch 2001, A Space Odyssey as a younger person, as I did, you're extremely confused. It doesn't really have the pace of the sci-fi movies that you're used to. There's no talking like the first 25 minutes. And there's definitely puzzle pieces along the way that you're not really even meant to understand, at least on a base level. However, I particularly remember my first run through when I watched the uneasiness and understanding the progression of trying to show the evolution of man from some kind of a primitive ape species into traveling the stars and evolving really into putting themselves into possible obsolescence through AI. Right? There's a lot of transhumanism that you don't even, I didn't realize at the time was transhumanism in that film, but there's a lot of transhumanism in that film. You know, now looking back at it, it's basically creating your replacement that has the power over your life force. That's pretty wild. And that's, in my opinion, what's happening. So I look at that and, you know, in the end, humanity wins, right? Dave versus Hal. Dave beats Hal. Man beats machine. Yes. I had never really come at it from the angle of what I heard Rob Ager say on an interview I came across. I think he must have posted it in the last several weeks on his page. And the monolith itself, for the meaning of the monolith, which I think he's correct, really represents the entertainment screen, the movie screen, the screen that we're all attached to at that time to tell narratives. All right, and really how that is a base reality. I mean, that's kind of the representation and the ride you're on throughout this. The monolith is really the movie screen, and I think it also speaks to the power of Hollyweird and their influence on society. Through backdoor channels. Now, for those that don't know, at the same time he made this film, he and Arthur C. Clarke worked together. Arthur C. Clarke puts together a novel. Arthur C. Clarke, big time transhumanist, huge transhumanist. And there were a few things that I learned over the weekend, which were just mind-blowing to me that I hadn't ever picked this up or hadn't seen it. And it wasn't just Ager's work. We'll go back to Ager in a second. But for instance, for those familiar with the film, in the scene where finally this ape species has been enlightened by the monolith, they've figured out tools and how to use force, right? And basically they figured out now that they can use force against others, and they've figured out how to use tools at a base level, and this takes them into the next step of their evolution. This bone that's been used as a weapon is thrown up into the air. And then the next thing you see, you haven't heard anybody speak throughout the whole thing. Right? Incredible film, by the way, still holds up, looks incredible. That's the other thing. It goes up and you see a spacecraft, some kind of a satellite. What I did not know about this, now if you look at this, is that what they're doing is showing you several space weapons, nuclear weapons. Remember, this is 2001. This is from the 60s. So what they're telling you is, all right, and supposedly in the script, they're about 100 miles up, and in the book, they're about 100 miles up as well. So they're actually, in the baseline of the script, they're described as nuclear weapons, And Arthur C. Clarke has discussed how they are nuclear weapons. So the weaponization of space is the first thing you see after this bone that's been used as a weapon is there. And that is actually a reality. Now, whether all these other nation states have nuclear weapons in space, they weaponized space in the 80s outwardly. And I would argue the vast majority of what the NASA program actually was that weaponization of space, right? And something that to me really is undeniable. And it's essential to understand and learn. Because going back to Ager, when he was going over the overall meaning of the film, he goes, well, the first thing that I would say, the meaning of this is, the first thing I think is that interstellar space travel or this kind of thing is like bullshit. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, it's not plausible. It's really probably not possible on the scale that we've been told. And the darkness of space and the unsure, it's really like a horror film. So right out of the gates, he says that he hints at this throughout the movie. But for those that don't know, this is really a film that not only embraces the idea of Darwinism, but was sold not so much that man was going to defeat AI, but make people look at it in a positive light. And IBM in particular was an investor. NASA worked on the film. I mean, directly on the film. Two head guys at NASA work. So really this presentation that Kubrick gives is a propaganda piece for the establishment in many ways to promote technology and even the idea of eating not real food like the astronauts do. The printed food and even the artificial food that they eat that we're now seeing come into fruition. Another thing that that grabbed me, really grabbed me when I found out that the first thing that they were talking about were nuclear weapons in space was in the screenplay. It also says that overpopulation in 2001 has overtaken, basically the other problems in society. It's over. So again, this worldview that we need to go to space, okay, that there's too many of us, everything is there, that we came from apes, and then Kubrick kind of flips it on its head in Ager's mind and says, no, actually, this is a film saying that these things are ludicrous. Now, there's obviously a ton of different theories out there of whether or not the moon landing was a hoax, right? And whether or not Kubrick was behind that. I'll say this about the moon landing, first of all. The Apollo missions, to me, although there is some impressive video, Lord knows, what that is or where it was taken or how they did it, from Kraft, I don't buy it. And I'm not buying Artemis right now. Okay, I really do believe the vast majority of what we're seeing via space is a Hollywood illusion that's based on what we saw in 2001: A Space Odyssey. 100%. And that's the other thing that pierced the culture. You look at even they're changing the colors now, by the way. You look at even that orange color that's featured there in that original spacesuit and how that spacesuit looked. All right, there's a ton of influence there as well. Kubrick's film's a classic. It's 2+ hours. A lot of people will think it's slow. It's not for them, but it's something that you can continue to look at and be like, wow, this is super interesting. And there are a lot of hidden messages, layers to that film. I love those type of films. Love them. All right.